Hey everyone, before we get into this story, make sure you're subscribed, because this one still feels unreal to say out loud. 2 days before my mother's 58th birthday, I overheard a phone call that changed everything. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but sometimes life has a way of making sure you do. I'd just come by my parents' house to drop off some flowers. Simple, yellow tulips, Mom's favorite. I was standing outside the kitchen when I heard my brother's voice carry through the cracked door. Honestly, Dad, I think it's better if Liam skips this one. He'll just make things awkward. For a second, I thought I misheard. Then my father's low voice followed, steady and agreeing. You might be right. Your mother wants everything perfect this year. No drama. No pity looks. They were talking about me. And I froze, bouquet in hand, heart thudding so loud it drowned out their words. My mother's voice joined in, soft but trembling. He's been through a lot. But I just don't want guests asking questions. It's better this way. The air left my lungs. I stepped back quietly, tulips still in my hand, and slipped out before anyone noticed I'd been there. That was the moment I realized. I'd officially been uninvited to my own mother's birthday. They thought I couldn't handle being around their crowd anymore. Not after my business failed 2 years ago. Not after the breakup that left me living alone in a one-bedroom apartment. Struggling to restart my life while my brother Aaron paraded his promotion at a law firm. In their eyes, I'd fallen behind. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for an invite. I just went home, sat on the couch of my tiny apartment, and stared at the tulips, realizing I'd never even given them to her. That night, I opened my laptop, the same battered one I'd used during the worst months of my life, and stared at the draft folder I hadn't touched in years. See? Before everything crashed, I used to write code, build apps. I'd even launched a small platform connecting freelancers with local businesses. Until one investor pulled out, and everything spiraled. After that, I promised myself I'd never chase a big dream again. But sitting there, replaying their words, better if he skips, something lit up in me I hadn't felt in years. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted to prove, maybe to myself, that I wasn't done yet. The next morning, I called my old friend and former co-founder, Rachel. She answered like she'd been waiting for the call all along. Finally, I was wondering when you'd get tired of playing small. I laughed for the first time in weeks. You still have that prototype we built, the scheduling platform for small clinics? I do. Why? Because I think I just found the reason to finish it. And we did. For 3 months, we barely slept. We coded, we pitched, we refined. This time, I didn't care about investors or press. I just wanted to build something that worked. Something that mattered. And somehow it did. We called it PulseLink, a cloud-based system that streamlined appointment scheduling for healthcare providers. Nothing glamorous, just something efficient and real. Within 6 months, 5 local clinics signed up. Then 10, then 50, by month 9. A healthcare software firm in Chicago wanted to license our tech. I still remember the day they offered a deal worth $45 million. I didn't even tell my family. Not because I was bitter, but because for the first time, I didn't need their approval. The timing, though, was poetic. The acquisition was set to be announced publicly the same weekend as Mom's next birthday. A year to the day since they told me I shouldn't show up. On the morning of the deal, Rachel and I met in a glass-walled conference room downtown. Lawyers in suits, executives with rehearsed smiles, cameras ready for the post-signing photo. When I signed my name on that final document, I felt the weight of every sleepless night lift off my shoulders. Rachel grinned. You did it, Liam. We did, I corrected. Our names were on something real. Something that had survived failure, judgment, and silence. That evening, back in my apartment, the same one my brother once called temporary housing for failed dreams. I turned on the TV just to see the press coverage. There it was. Local startup acquired and multi-million-dollar deal. The headline flashed across my screen. My name, my company, my photo. I leaned back, exhaled, and smiled. Then, just as I picked up my phone to call Rachel again, it rang first. It was Mom. When I saw Mom's name flashing across my phone, part of me hesitated to answer. It had been almost a year since we'd last spoken, but curiosity won. "Hey, Mom." For a second there was only noise, music, voices, the faint echo of glasses clinking. Then her voice, low and uncertain. "Liam, is it true?" "Is what true?" "The news. They're saying you sold a company, PulseLink, for $45 million. Your picture's on TV. People are showing me on their phones." Her words tumbled over one another, somewhere between disbelief and panic. I could hear my father in the background, his voice tight. "Ask him if it's real. We're standing here looking like fools." I kept my tone even. "Yeah, Mom, it's real. We closed the deal this morning." Silence stretched, the kind that tells you everything someone's too proud to say. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Everyone's here. Aaron's partners, Dad's clients. They all just saw the headline on the local news. They're asking where you are." I almost laughed at the irony. Probably wondering why I wasn't invited. She didn't deny it. "Liam, please," she said quickly. "Come to the house now, we can explain." "Explain what?" I asked. "That I'm suddenly worthy because I made money?" "No, honey, it's not that. It's exactly that." I could hear her exhale shakily. Behind her, someone said, "Carol, is that your son, the tech guy?" And the room erupted with chatter. She lowered her voice. "They all want to meet you. Please don't make a scene. Just come, okay? It'll mean a lot to your father." For a second, I considered it. Then I remembered the tulips I never gave her, drying and brittle in a vase I'd kept all year. "I think you made it clear last time," I said softly. "I'd ruin the party, remember?" And I hung up. The phone started lighting up again almost instantly. Dad, decline. Aaron, decline. Unknown number, decline. Then came the texts. "Aaron, dude, you should have told us. We look like idiots. Dad, we need to talk, come home. People have questions. Mom, please. Everyone's waiting." I turned the phone face down. Across town, I imagined the scene. Wine glasses half raised, chatter silenced as the TV behind the buffet table played the local business segment. My photo beside a headline announcing a multi-million-dollar deal. The same people who once asked, "What's Liam doing these days?" now whispering, "Did you hear? He built a company." I didn't need to be there to see their faces. By 8 p.m., my inbox was exploding. Reporters, investors, old classmates who had ghosted me after my first failure. Even an ex-girlfriend who'd once told me she needed someone more stable. Funny how quickly the world turns its head when money walks into the room. Rachel texted, "Saw the coverage. You okay?" "More than okay," I replied. "Just watching the show from home." Later that night, the calls stopped, but a message notification popped up from an unfamiliar number. "Unknown. You think this is funny? You humiliated us. Aaron." I sighed, opened the chat. "Me humiliated you? How?" "Aaron. Everyone's asking why we said you weren't coming. Why we acted like you were some charity case. You made us look awful." "Me. I didn't make you say those things." "Aaron, you could have warned us about the deal." "Me, you told me not to show up, remember?" No response. 10 minutes later, a photo came through. Mom's living room, packed with guests. My face on the TV screen behind them. The caption, "Local founder closes major healthcare tech acquisition." For a moment, I felt a flicker of guilt. Then I remembered every conversation where I'd been talked over, every polite smile masking judgment. At 10 p.m., Channel 7 called. "Mr. Hayes, this is Megan Price from Channel 7 Business. Congratulations on the PulseLink acquisition. Could we get you in the studio tonight for a quick feature?" Part of me wanted to decline, like Emma in your reference story. But another part thought, why not? "Sure," I said. "Send me the address." By 9:45 p.m., I was sitting under studio lights, answering questions about perseverance, failure, and the reality of building something from scratch. Megan asked, "So what's next for you?" I smiled. "Sleep, then maybe something bigger." We both laughed. When the segment aired at 10, the anchor's final line was almost poetic. A story of resilience. Liam Hayes, the man they said shouldn't show up, turns out he never needed an invitation. The next morning, I woke to 3 voicemails from Mom. The first was quiet sobbing. The second was Dad, defensive as ever. "You blindsided us, Liam. You made us look like fools in front of everyone." The third was softer. "I'm sorry," Mom said. I don't know what else to say. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, just a strange, calm distance. I'd spent years chasing their approval, their attention, their love packaged in polite criticism. Now I realized I didn't need it. That afternoon, I met Rachel downtown for coffee. She slid her phone across the table, social media clips of our interview already going viral. "You're trending," she said with a grin. Hashtag he showed up anyway. I laughed, shaking my head. The internet's wild. But inside, I felt something deeper. A quiet peace I hadn't felt in years. That evening, just as the sun started to sink behind the skyline, my phone buzzed again. Aunt Marie this time, the only one in my family who'd never judged me. "Your mom's heartbroken," she said. "She knows she messed up." "I know," I replied. "But I needed them to see it. To see me." "They see you now," she said gently. "Question is, do you still want them in your life?" I didn't answer right away. I looked out at the city lights. The same skyline I used to stare at, wondering if I'd ever make something of myself. Now, I wasn't chasing validation. I just wanted peace. Maybe, I finally said, but on my terms this time. The morning after the news broke, I woke to sunlight cutting across my apartment. The same apartment my brother once called a temporary setback. Now it looked different. Maybe because I finally felt free inside it. I brewed coffee and scrolled through my notifications. Dozens of journalists wanted interviews. Venture firms wanted to connect. People from college who'd ignored me for years suddenly remembered my birthday. It was strange. How success made the world talk louder. Then my phone buzzed again. Mom. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Her voice was soft, like she'd been crying all night. "Liam, can we talk, please? No audience, just you and me." I agreed to meet her at a cafe downtown, neutral ground. She looked smaller when I saw her. Shoulders slumped, makeup barely on, trying to smile but not quite pulling it off. "Hi, Mom." She reached for my hand immediately. "I'm so sorry, honey. I didn't say anything." Let her talk. I was awful. We were awful. I thought I was protecting you, but I was protecting myself. From embarrassment. From questions I didn't know how to answer. I didn't want to admit I didn't understand your world. Her voice cracked. "You have every right to hate me." I took a slow breath. "I don't hate you, Mom. I just wish you'd believed in me when it didn't make headlines." Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded, swallowing hard. "You deserve that, and I'm sorry you had to prove it this way." For the first time in a long time, I believed her. Over the next few days, the story kept growing. PulseLink's acquisition trended on tech sites. A national outlet called it the comeback story of the year. I did 2 more interviews, but I made sure to keep them about the work, not about my family. Still, people noticed. On social media, someone dug up an old photo of Aaron and me at a family barbecue, captioning it, "Wonder what his brother's thinking now." It went viral, and I could guess exactly what Aaron was thinking. Because 2 nights later, he showed up at my apartment. He looked sharp as ever, designer coat, polished shoes, but his expression was uncertain. "Hey," he said flatly. I opened the door wider. "Come in." He hesitated, then stepped inside. His eyes darted around the place like he was expecting chaos. "Nice place," he said finally. "Thanks," I replied. "It's been mine for 3 years." He winced. "Look, I came to say sorry. I shouldn't have said what I did last year. You didn't deserve that." I studied him for a moment. "You didn't just say it, Aaron, you meant it." He sighed. "Yeah, I did. I was angry. You had potential, but you weren't doing anything. I thought you gave up." "I didn't give up," I said quietly. "I just stopped needing your definition of success." He nodded slowly, rubbing his hands together. "Well, guess you proved me wrong." "Wasn't about proving you wrong," I said. "It was about proving me right." That landed. For once, he didn't argue. He stood up to leave, paused by the door. Mom's been crying every night. Dad's been pretending he's fine, but he's not. You really hit them where it hurts. I raised an eyebrow. I didn't hit them, Aaron. I just stopped trying to fit in where I wasn't wanted. He didn't have an answer for that. After he left, I sat in silence for a while, the city humming outside my window, the hum of validation mixed with the ache of old wounds. Rachel called later that night. "So how's the family circus?" "Exactly what you'd expect," I said. "Apologies, half-truths, damage control." She laughed softly. "They'll come around. People always do when the spotlight moves." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm not sure I want to go back to how things were." "Then don't," she said simply. "You've got nothing left to prove." And she was right. A week passed. My parents sent flowers, lilies, not tulips. A small card, "Proud of you. Love, Mom and Dad." I appreciated the gesture, but it felt symbolic, pretty on the surface, fragile underneath. Then Aunt Marie called again. "They really want to see you, Liam. Your dad can't stop talking about how wrong he was." I thought about it for a while, then said, "Okay, one dinner. No crowd, no cameras." That Sunday I drove to my parents' house for the first time in nearly a year. The same front door, the same smell of Mom's cinnamon candles. But everything felt heavier, like time had pressed down on the walls themselves. Dad greeted me first. He looked older, like the weight of pride had finally cracked something open. "Son," he said, voice rough. "I owe you an apology." I nodded. "You do," he swallowed hard. "I thought I was helping. I thought by pushing you, criticizing you, I was motivating you. But I was just making you feel small. That's on me. It wasn't dramatic. It was just honest. And that honesty mattered more than any grand gesture." I told him, "I didn't build PulseLink to prove you wrong. I built it because I finally stopped believing I needed your approval." He nodded again, eyes shining. "You don't. You never did." Mom joined us at the table, hands trembling. "Can we start over?" she asked. I thought about it. About all the nights I'd questioned my worth. All the times I'd swallowed humiliation just to keep peace. Then I smiled softly. "Yeah, we can." That night we ate together, quietly, awkwardly, but together. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. When I left, Mom hugged me tight and whispered, "Next year, promise me you'll come to the party, invited or not." I laughed. "We'll see." Driving home, city lights flickering past, I realized something. I'd spent years chasing validation that was never mine to begin with. Now, I didn't need anyone to see me, because I finally saw myself. The dinner changed something. Not everything, but enough. For the first time in years, my parents and I could talk without flinching. There were still pauses, those long, uneven silences where regret hung heavier than words. But there was also laughter, cautious and real. After that night, I went back to work feeling lighter. PulseLink's integration with the Chicago firm was in full swing, and they offered me a leadership role. I accepted, but only on the condition that I could keep building new projects under my own team. Freedom mattered more to me than a title. Within months, the name Liam Hayes stopped being just a headline and started turning into a story people quoted. Business schools asked me to speak. Podcasts invited me to share lessons on resilience. Every time someone introduced me as the entrepreneur who turned rejection into fuel, I'd smile because they weren't wrong. But the truth was quieter. What fueled me wasn't revenge. It was remembering how it felt to stand outside my parents' kitchen, holding those tulips, listening to people I loved decide I didn't belong. That silence had become my compass. One afternoon, a journalist from Forbes Tech came by for an interview. She looked around my office, bright, minimalist, nothing flashy, and asked, "After everything, what does success mean to you now?" I paused, then told her the truth. Peace. Waking up and not needing to prove anything to anyone. "That's success," she smiled. "That's going to be your pull quote." And it was. Rachel and I started mentoring young developers who couldn't afford college but had raw talent. We created a fellowship through PulseLink's proceeds, paid internships, housing stipends, mentorship. The first group of fellows came from everywhere. Detroit, Dallas, Phoenix. Bright, hungry, fearless. Watching them reminded me of who I'd been before failure, before fear crept in. One evening after a mentoring session, Rachel nudged me. "You realize this is the real win, right? Not the deal, not the press. This." She was right again. A few months later, my mom called with news. "We're planning another family dinner," she said. Smaller this time. No country club crowd, no speeches, just family. Aaron and his wife are cooking. I hesitated, but then she added, "Tulips on the table, by the way. Yellow ones," I laughed. "All right, I'll be there." That night, something unexpected happened. Halfway through dinner, Dad raised his glass. "To Liam," he said, not because of the company or the money, but because he reminded us what character looks like when nobody's watching. It wasn't rehearsed. It wasn't polished, but it was the kind of apology that doesn't need the word sorry in it. Mom smiled through tears. "And next year," she added, "you're planning my birthday, non-negotiable." Everyone laughed, even Aaron. For the first time, the sound didn't sting. Later that night, I stepped outside. The sky was the same deep blue it had been the night I signed the deal, but it felt warmer now. Mom followed me out, arms folded against the chill. "You know," she said, "when I told you not to come that day, I thought I was protecting our family's image. But all I did was expose how small that image really was." I nodded. "We all learn things the hard way." She reached for my hand. "I'm still learning," I squeezed it back. "So am I." After that evening, life settled into a rhythm. PulseLink kept growing, but I didn't chase headlines anymore. I turned down interviews that wanted to dramatize the family betrayal angle. That story was done. Instead, I focused on the next chapter. Building Havenworks, a non-profit tech lab for students from underfunded schools. Rachel called it my second act. For me, it was the first one that truly mattered. One day, an email landed in my inbox with the subject line, "Speaking Invitation, the Whitmore Foundation." I almost laughed out loud. The same Mrs. Whitmore who'd whispered judgment at my mother's party was now running a foundation conference and wanted me as the keynote speaker. I said yes. When the day arrived, I stood on that polished stage, lights bright, crowd full of suits and polite applause. Halfway through the talk, I looked down and spotted my parents in the front row, beaming, proud, completely still. I ended the speech with this line: "The greatest thing you can build isn't a company. It's the version of yourself that no longer needs validation to keep going." The room went quiet, then erupted in applause. Mom was crying again, but this time, it wasn't from shame. After the event, we went to dinner, just the three of us. Dad told me he'd started mentoring younger employees at his firm. Mom said she'd begun volunteering at a local women's tech network. It hit me then. Sometimes redemption doesn't arrive in grand gestures. It shows up quietly, in who people try to become after they see where they went wrong. Driving home that night, I rolled the window down. The air smelled like rain and asphalt and second chances. For the first time, I thought about that phrase. He told me not to show up. It used to sting. Now it just made me smile, because I did show up. Not at the party, at life. 6 months after the conference, I was invited to a private panel in San Francisco. The future of independent innovation. Big names, cameras, investors. The kind of event that would have terrified me once. Before stepping on stage, I caught my reflection in the mirror backstage. Same face, same eyes, but something had changed. I looked still. Not the kind of still that comes from exhaustion, but from peace. I didn't crave validation anymore. I didn't need applause to feel seen. I had already been through the worst kind of silence. The kind that comes from people you love deciding you're not enough. After that, the world's noise just sounded smaller. When the panel ended, an older man approached me. He was nervous, clutching a small notebook. "Mr. Hayes, I'm starting my own app company. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. Any advice?" I smiled. "Keep going until the people who doubted you start pretending they always believed in you." He laughed, nodded, and wrote it down. I walked out of that conference and realized something simple. I wasn't chasing revenge anymore. I was paying forward the lesson that saved me. That evening, I stopped by a quiet cafe near the pier, one of those places where time slows down. Rachel joined me as always, laptop in hand. We didn't talk much at first, just sat there, watching the sunset melt into the bay. "You ever think about how far you've come?" she asked. "Every day," I said. "But I also think about how far I had to fall first," she grinned. "And you'd do it again, wouldn't you?" I looked out at the orange glow over the water. "Yeah," I said. Every single time. Later that night, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. A photo message. She'd framed a picture of us from the Whitmore event. Below it, she'd written on a sticky note, "Always show up, even when they tell you not to." I stared at the message for a long time. Then, without really planning to, I posted it online with a caption. "Forgiveness isn't about letting people back in. It's about letting yourself move forward." Within hours, it was everywhere. Thousands of comments. Messages from strangers who'd been told they'd never make it. People who'd been left out, underestimated, dismissed. They saw themselves in the story, not of success, but of reclaiming self-worth. That's when I realized what this entire journey was really about. It was never about my family seeing my value. It was about me never forgetting it again. A year later, on the anniversary of PulseLink's acquisition, we held a small celebration at the office. No big press, no flashy displays, just my team, the people who'd believed when no one else did. I stood up to give a short speech. "People talk about luck," I began, "but luck doesn't build what lasts. Belief does, the kind that keeps you going when the room is empty and the world's quiet." They clapped, and for once it didn't feel like validation. It felt like gratitude echoing back. When the night ended, Rachel handed me a small box. Inside was a card that read, "To the man who showed up anyway." I laughed, because it was perfect. Months later, I visited my parents again. This time there was no hesitation. Just the smell of my mom's cooking, the sound of my dad humming off-key, and a yellow tulip in a vase by the window. Dad handed me a glass of wine. "So, when are you finally taking a vacation?" I smiled. "When you stop worrying I'll ruin another party." He groaned, laughing. "Never letting that one go, huh?" "Not a chance." After dinner, I walked outside alone. The stars were sharp against the dark sky. The same house that once felt too small for my dreams now just felt right-sized. I remembered every version of myself that had stood in this driveway. The embarrassed one, the angry one, the determined one. And for the first time, I felt nothing but gratitude for all of them. Because every version of me had shown up when it mattered most, even the broken one. The next morning before leaving, Mom stopped me at the door. "Liam," she said softly, "thank you for giving us another chance." I hugged her. "You gave me one too," I said. And that was the truth. As I drove away, the sun was rising behind me, streaking gold across the horizon. I rolled down the window, let the wind in, and smiled. He told me not to show up. Said I'd ruin it, but I did show up, just not the way he expected. Not for his approval. Not for anyone's validation. I showed up for myself, and that made all the difference.